now. This is what the Astroworld Music Festival looked like moments before Friday's tragedy.
Music festivals represent the pinnacle of celebration for millions around the world. Weekends filled with pulsing lights, thunderous beats, and collective euphoria as strangers become temporary families united by sound. But beneath the Instagram-perfect moments and life-changing performances lies a darker reality that few want to acknowledge.
It took nearly 24 hours to recover all the bodies from inside the ruins of Rhode Island's Station nightclub.
These massive gatherings, often hosting hundreds of thousands of people, can transform from paradise to nightmare in moments. From deadly crowd crushes to catastrophic structural failures, drug-related deaths to weather disasters, the history of music festivals is stained with tragedies.
3 people died, including 2 from the heat.
That remind us how fragile the line between celebration and catastrophe truly is. As we explore these devastating events, we'll uncover not just what went wrong, but how these darkest moments have forced an entire industry to confront uncomfortable truths about how we gather to celebrate music. The original 1969 Woodstock Festival stands as a cultural touchstone, symbolizing peace, love, and music. 3 decades later, its anniversary reboot would become synonymous with something entirely different: chaos, violence, and criminal negligence. What began as an attempt to recapture the magic of the original quickly descended into what many would later call the day music died. July 1999 saw approximately 400,000 people descend upon a former Air Force base in Rome, New York, for what promoters promised would be 3 days of musical celebration. From the start, warning signs were abundant. The venue, a concrete tarmac offering virtually no shade, turned brutally hot as temperatures soared above 100 degrees Celsius. Water stations were few and far between, while vendors charged an exorbitant $4 for a single bottle of water, equivalent to almost $7 today. Sanitation quickly became a nightmare, with overflowing portable toilets and shower facilities that collapsed into mud pits of human waste. As physical discomfort grew, so did the crowd's collective anger. The festival's booking choices reflected a cultural shift toward aggressive music, with acts like Limp Bizkit, Korn, and Rage Against the Machine drawing audiences primed for physical release. During Limp Bizkit's now infamous performance of Break Stuff, frontman Fred Durst encouraged the already agitated crowd to channel their frustration physically. The result was immediate. Fighting broke out, security barriers were demolished, and the first major wave of destruction began. By the festival's final night, as Red Hot Chili Peppers performed under candlelight, a tribute to the original Woodstock, organizers distributed thousands of candles intended as a peaceful gesture. Instead, these became ignition sources for multiple fires across the grounds. The band continued playing Jimi Hendrix's Fire as blazes erupted throughout the venue. Festival infrastructure burned, vendor booths were looted, and vehicles were overturned and set aflame. Most disturbing were the numerous sexual assaults reported during the chaos. The New York State Police would later confirm multiple rapes occurred in the mosh pits and camping areas, often in plain sight of other attendees who failed to intervene. By the time state troopers in riot gear finally secured the area, the venue resembled a war zone more than a music festival. The aftermath was devastating. Though remarkably no deaths occurred directly from the riots, hundreds required medical treatment for dehydration, heat exhaustion, trauma from physical assaults, and sexual violence. The psychological trauma for many victims would prove lasting. Financially, the destruction totaled millions, while the reputation damage to the Woodstock brand proved irreparable. Roskilde Festival tragedy. Less than a year after Woodstock 99's chaos, a different kind of festival tragedy would forever change how the music industry approaches crowd safety. The setting couldn't have been more different from the American disaster. Roskilde Festival in Denmark had built a reputation as one of Europe's most beloved and well-organized music events since its 1971 founding. Unlike Woodstock 99's corporate opportunism, Roskilde operated as a non-profit with decades of successful, peaceful gatherings. On June 30, 2000, as Pearl Jam took the Orange Stage, Roskilde's largest performance space, what began as typical festival excitement transformed into catastrophe through a deadly combination of environmental factors and human behavior. Approximately 50,000 fans had gathered for the Seattle band's performance, many arriving early to secure prime positions. A light rain had fallen earlier, making the ground slippery and unstable. As Pearl Jam launched into their third song, the crowd's natural movement created a phenomenon that crowd scientists would later identify as the primary killer at music events, a progressive crowd collapse. The dynamics were deceptively simple, yet lethal. As density increased near the stage, waves of pressure rippled through the tightly packed audience. When people in front lost footing on the slick ground, they fell forward. Those behind, unable to see what was happening and still pressed forward by the crowd's momentum, fell on top of them. Within moments, a pile of human bodies formed in a depression near the stage. The horror of the situation became apparent when security staff began pulling unconscious, blue-faced victims from the crush. Pearl Jam frontman Eddie Vedder, noticing the emergency unfolding, stopped the performance, repeatedly begging the crowd to step back.
On the count of three steps back, please. 1, 2, 3.
"We've got injured people here. We're going to try to help them. Please back up," he pleaded as medical personnel rushed to the scene. By the time emergency services fully responded, the damage was catastrophic. 9 young men aged between 17 and 26 from Denmark, Sweden, Germany, the Netherlands, and Australia had suffocated to death in the crush. 26 others sustained serious injuries requiring hospitalization. The psychological impact extended far beyond the immediate victims. Pearl Jam members, devastated by what had occurred during their performance, considered disbanding entirely. The band would later write in an official statement, "This is the worst thing that could ever happen. We are in the midst of our own anguish and dealing with this in our own way." The Roskilde tragedy prompted an immediate and comprehensive re-evaluation of festival safety throughout Europe. The resulting Danish inquiry led to revolutionary changes that would be adopted worldwide. Mandatory crowd barriers designed to prevent progressive crowd collapse, improved communication systems between security zones, real-time monitoring of crowd density, and the development of specialized emergency protocols for mass gatherings. Love Parade disaster. The Love Parade began in 1989 as a small political demonstration for peace and international understanding through music in West Berlin. Over 2 decades, it evolved into one of the world's largest electronic dance music events, regularly attracting over 1 million participants at its peak. What started as a celebration of unity would, in 2010, become the site of one of Europe's deadliest modern festival disasters. After financial struggles and venue problems in Berlin, the Love Parade found a new home, rotating between cities in Germany's industrial Ruhr region. On July 24, 2010, the city of Duisburg hosted the event in and around an abandoned freight railway station. This unusual venue featured a critical design flaw that would prove catastrophic. A single tunnel served as both entrance and exit for an estimated 400,000 attendees, far exceeding the area's official capacity of 250,000. From the beginning, warning signs were evident. By early afternoon, the festival grounds were already overcrowded, prompting police to send messages to arriving participants urging them to turn back. However, these warnings never reached most attendees already approaching the tunnel. Meanwhile, thousands more continued to arrive by train, unaware of the dangerous congestion ahead. At approximately 4:30 p.m., the fatal chain of events began. With the main festival area already at capacity, police attempted to block new arrivals from entering the tunnel. This created a bottleneck as those trying to exit encountered the incoming crowd. In the narrow passage, people became trapped from all sides. As panic spread, the situation deteriorated into a deadly crush. The tunnel's design made the catastrophe particularly lethal. A steep ramp led up from the tunnel to the festival grounds, creating what crowd safety experts later described as a death trap. Those at the bottom of this ramp were pushed from behind while simultaneously being pressed downward by gravity and the weight of those stumbling above them. Most victims died of compression asphyxia, unable to expand their chests to breathe as pressure mounted from all directions. Survivors described the horror of being compressed so tightly they couldn't move their arms or turn their heads. People were screaming, but the music was so loud that no one heard them, recalled one witness. The first deaths occurred around 5 p.m., but the music continued for hours, many festival goers dancing unaware of the tragedy unfolding nearby. The final toll was devastating, 21 people dead and over 500 injured. Victims ranged in age from 18 to 38 and included attendees from Germany, Spain, Italy, Bosnia-Herzegovina, China, and Australia. The international nature of the casualties underscored the global appeal of these events and the global responsibility for their safety. The Love Parade disaster's aftermath was marked by years of legal battles and investigations. Public outrage grew when initial attempts were made to blame the victims themselves for rushing the entrance. However, extensive video evidence and expert testimony eventually concluded that organizational failures were the primary cause. Criminal charges were filed against 10 people, including city officials and event organizers, though a prolonged legal process ultimately ended without convictions in 2020. Electric Daisy Carnival deaths. Electric Daisy Carnival, EDC, represents the pinnacle of electronic dance music culture in America, a neon wonderland where hundreds of thousands gather annually to experience immersive art, carnival rides, and non-stop music across multiple stages. Yet beneath the spectacle lies a troubling pattern of fatalities that has followed the festival across different years and locations. EDC's transformation from underground rave to mainstream phenomenon brought increased scrutiny to the persistent dark side of electronic music events, drug-related medical emergencies, and deaths. The festival's history of fatalities began receiving national attention in 2010 when 15-year-old Sasha Rodriguez died from an MDMA overdose at the Los Angeles Coliseum. Her death raised immediate questions not only about drug use but also about age restrictions and the adequacy of medical services at such events. The tragedy forced EDC out of Los Angeles, relocating to Las Vegas in 2011, but the pattern of fatalities continued. Between 2011 and 2019, at least 11 more attendees died in connection with the festival's Las Vegas editions. While circumstances varied, most deaths involved a combination of MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy or Molly, extreme desert heat often exceeding 100-degree forts, and the physically demanding nature of dancing for hours in such conditions. The medical explanation for these deaths reveals why this particular combination proves so deadly. MDMA significantly impairs the body's ability to regulate temperature while simultaneously causing users to feel euphoric and energetic despite dangerous overheating. In the Nevada desert heat, with non-stop physical exertion and often inadequate hydration, body temperatures can reach fatal levels exceeding 108 degrees. At these temperatures, organs begin to fail and the blood's clotting mechanism breaks down. In one particularly tragic case in 2017, 34-year-old Michael Morse died with a body temperature of 109.6 degrees Celsius, nearly 3 degrees above the threshold typically considered fatal. Autopsy reports revealed MDMA in his system, along with extreme dehydration. His wife later filed a lawsuit claiming security protocols had delayed emergency medical treatment by over an hour. Festival organizers' Insomniac events have progressively implemented stronger safety measures in response to these incidents. Modern EDC events feature free water stations, cooling areas, medical tents staffed with emergency physicians, and amnesty boxes where illicit substances can be disposed of without legal consequences. Ground control teams of sober volunteers patrol the crowds looking for attendees in distress. Yet despite these precautions, deaths continue to occur, raising uncomfortable questions about whether such massive events in extreme environments can ever be made completely safe when drug use remains prevalent. Critics argue that zero-tolerance drug policies paradoxically increase danger by driving usage underground and discouraging users from seeking help when experiencing adverse effects. The EDC tragedies also reveal a demographic shift in festival fatalities. Unlike crowd-crush disasters that often kill indiscriminately, EDC's deaths predominantly affect a specific demographic: young adults between 18 and 35, disproportionately male, engaging in voluntary risk-taking behavior. This pattern has prompted debates about personal responsibility versus organizational duty of care in festival environments. Astroworld Festival Tragedy. On November 5, 2021, approximately 50,000 fans gathered at NRG Park in Houston, Texas for rapper Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival. By the following morning, 8 people would be dead, with 2 more dying in the following days and hundreds injured in one of the worst concert disasters in US history. The incident shocked the music world not only for its severity but for how it unfolded in plain sight during a continuously streaming performance. The problems began long before the headlining set. Earlier that day, thousands of fans without tickets had overwhelmed entry points, breaking through barriers and security checkpoints. This unauthorized entry significantly compromised crowd management efforts and likely contributed to dangerous overcrowding in key areas. As Scott took the stage at 9:00 p.m., the crowd dynamics turned deadly. Witnesses described being packed so tightly they couldn't raise their arms or expand their lungs fully to breathe. The density created compression waves through the audience that witnesses described as feeling like a tsunami of people. Those who fell were quickly trampled or crushed under the weight of others unable to move. What made Astroworld particularly disturbing was that the performance continued for 37 minutes after officials had declared a mass casualty event. Scott's high-energy performance style, which had historically encouraged what he called raging, aggressive moshing, and boundary-pushing behavior, continued even as unconscious bodies were being passed overhead to security. Though video evidence shows Scott acknowledging an ambulance in the crowd at one point, the show's momentum never significantly paused. The victims ranged in age from 9 to 27 years old. The youngest, Ezra Blount, had been sitting on his father's shoulders before the crowd's surge separated them. Found later with catastrophic injuries, the child remained in a medically induced coma for days before becoming the 10th fatality. Medical examiners determined all 10 victims died from compression asphyxia, effectively crushed to death while standing upright. In the aftermath, investigations revealed a cascade of operational failures. The event's operations plan identified crowd surges as a potential threat, but provided inadequate countermeasures. Radio communications between security teams broke down. Medical resources were quickly overwhelmed, with some responders lacking basic equipment like working backboards for extracting victims from the crush. Perhaps most damning were revelations about ignored warnings. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner had expressed concerns directly to Scott about crowd safety before the performance. Additionally, live-stream footage showed fans climbing camera platforms, screaming for help, and attempting to alert technicians that people were dying in the crowd. The legal fallout was immediate and massive. Over 4,900 victims claimed injuries, resulting in lawsuits seeking billions in damages against Scott, promoter Live Nation Apple, which streamed the event, and various security companies. In documents filed with courts, plaintiffs' attorneys argued that the tragedy was predictable and preventable, citing Scott's history of encouraging fans to rush security and sneak into shows. Beyond legal consequences, Astroworld forced a cultural reckoning within hip-hop regarding performer responsibility. The disaster called into question the glorification of raging and whether artists bear responsibility for crowd behavior they actively encourage. For the broader festival industry, Astroworld demonstrated that even with modern knowledge about crowd dynamics, contemporary events remained vulnerable to catastrophic failure when multiple safety systems collapse simultaneously. Falls Festival crowd crush. While many festival tragedies occur during headlining performances, the Falls Festival incident in Australia demonstrates how quickly disaster can strike during transitional moments between sets. On December 30th, 2016, at the Falls Festival in Lorne, Victoria, what should have been a routine venue change between performances transformed into a nightmarish crowd crush that seriously injured dozens. Falls Festival, one of Australia's premier multi-day music events, had built a strong reputation for safety across its 24-year history. The 2016 edition featured a layout where attendees needed to move between two primary performance spaces, the Grand Theatre and the Valley Stage. As British band DMAs finished their set at the Grand Theatre, thousands of fans attempted to exit simultaneously to catch London Grammar's performance beginning at the Valley Stage. The critical design flaw became immediately apparent. The primary exit path narrowed significantly into what survivors would later describe as a human bottleneck. As more people pressed forward from behind, unaware of the congestion ahead, those at the front found themselves compressed into an increasingly confined space with nowhere to go. Within minutes, the pressure became unbearable. The first people to fall created a domino effect as others tumbled on top of them. One survivor, Olivia Jones, later recounted, "People started falling on top of each other. I was being compressed from every angle. My legs were being crushed and twisted. I couldn't expand my ribcage to breathe." Others described hearing bones breaking and screams for help as the crush intensified. The most harrowing aspect of the Falls Festival crush was how quickly it escalated from normalcy to life-threatening danger. 19-year-old Maddie, who suffered a fractured pelvis, described the terrifying progression. One second I was walking normally, the next I was on the ground being trampled, unable to move any part of my body.
I felt someone fall on top of me and I could just feel the air get squashed out of my lungs and I wasn't able to take another breath.
Emergency responders arrived quickly, but extracting victims proved challenging given the confined space and ongoing crowd pressure. In total, 76 people required medical treatment, with 19 hospitalized for serious injuries, including broken bones, head and spinal trauma, and respiratory complications. Remarkably, no deaths occurred, a fact attributed to the rapid response by on-site medical teams and the relative youth and fitness of most victims. The legal aftermath resulted in one of Australia's largest class-action lawsuits related to a music event. In 2020, festival organizers agreed to a settlement of AUD $7 million, approximately USD $515 million, to be distributed among victims, though without admitting legal liability. Beyond compensation, the Falls Festival incident prompted substantial changes to Australian event management regulations. New guidelines established minimum width requirements for pathways between stages, mandatory crowd density monitoring systems, and improved communication protocols during venue transitions. Perhaps most importantly, the incident highlighted the danger of foreseeable choke points, areas where venue design naturally concentrates crowd movement during predictable high-traffic periods. The Falls Festival crush serves as an important counterpoint to other festival disasters, demonstrating that serious incidents can occur even at well-established events with strong safety records.
In Seoul tonight, what started as a joyous Halloween street festival, ending with screams.
It also emphasizes that some of the most dangerous moments at festivals aren't during the high-energy performances themselves, but during the mass movements between attractions when crowd flow management becomes critical. Drug-related festival deaths beyond crowd crushes and structural failures. A persistent threat claims festival lives worldwide, drug-related fatalities. These deaths form a pattern distinct from other festival tragedies. They typically occur as isolated incidents spread across events rather than mass casualty situations, yet their cumulative toll makes them among the music world's most persistent dangers. The modern festival drug crisis reached public consciousness in 2013 when the Electric Zoo Festival in New York City was forced to cancel its final day following 2 MDMA-related deaths. Olivia Rotondo, 20, and Jeffrey Russ, 23, both died after consuming what toxicology reports identified as MDMA combined with hypothermia and dehydration. Rotondo's last words to an EMT were reportedly, "I've taken 6 hits of Molly and I'm not going to stop." This pattern continued at Hard Summer Music Festival in Southern California, where 9 drug-related deaths occurred between 2014 and 2019. The 2016 edition proved particularly deadly, with 3 attendees dying within 24 hours of each other.
After 4 people overdosed at dance parties in just 24 hours. 3 were teenagers.
One victim, 22-year-old Alyssa Dominguez, had a body temperature of 104 degrees when she reached the hospital, dying from MDMA-induced hypothermia despite aggressive medical intervention. What makes these cases particularly tragic is their predictability. Festival drug deaths typically follow a consistent profile: attendance at multi-day summer events with high temperatures, consumption of MDMA or similar substances, extended physical exertion, and inadequate hydration. The victims are predominantly young adults between 18 and 25, often with limited prior experience with the substances they consume. The dangerously unpredictable nature of illicit drugs compounds these risks. Analysis of substances sold as MDMA or ecstasy at festivals frequently reveals adulteration with more dangerous compounds like PMMA, paramethoxymethamphetamine, which has a higher toxicity and slower onset. This delayed effect often leads users to take additional doses, thinking the first was ineffective, resulting in lethal overdoses. Fentanyl contamination represents the newest and perhaps most alarming threat. At the 2021 Nocturnal Wonderland Festival in California, 4 attendees were hospitalized after consuming cocaine unknowingly laced with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid 5,100 times more potent than morphine. Only rapid administration of Narcan, naloxone by emergency medical teams prevented fatalities. Festival organizers have responded with varying approaches to drug-related risks. Some maintain zero-tolerance policies, increasing security measures and drug detection at entry points. Others have adopted harm reduction strategies, acknowledging that complete prevention is unrealistic. Organizations like Dance Safe provide on-site pill testing at some events, allowing attendees to verify substances' contents before consumption, though this practice remains legally contentious in many jurisdictions. The Bunk Police, another harm reduction organization, reported confiscating over 15,000 potentially lethal doses.
We manufacture, research, and distribute substance test kits for all kinds of different substances. The main one right now, of course, is fentanyl, and dozens of others beyond that.
Of adulterated drugs across various festivals through their testing program in 2018 alone, highlighting both the prevalence of dangerous substances and the potential effectiveness of intervention strategies. The debate around festival drug policy often becomes politically charged, with public health experts generally favoring harm reduction approaches, while law enforcement and some politicians advocate stricter enforcement. This tension has created inconsistent approaches across different events and regions, complicating education efforts and emergency response protocols. The Station nightclub fire. While not technically a festival, no examination of music event disasters would be complete without addressing the Station nightclub fire, an incident that fundamentally transformed fire safety regulations at music venues throughout North America. The tragedy's impact extended far beyond its immediate victims, reshaping how performance spaces approach pyrotechnics, occupancy limits, and emergency exits. On February 20, 2003, approximately 462 people packed into the Station, a small nightclub in West Warwick, Rhode Island, to see the band Great White perform. The venue had a legal capacity of 404, creating modest overcrowding that would soon prove fatal. Minutes into the show, the band's tour manager set off pyrotechnic gerbs, fountain-like fireworks, as part of the opening number. Sparks immediately ignited flammable acoustic foam installed on the walls and ceiling surrounding the stage. What followed was catastrophically rapid fire spread. Witnesses reported the entire club was engulfed within 5 minutes, with thick black smoke reaching the ceiling in just 30 seconds. The primary exit quickly became impassable as panicked patrons crowded the main doorway, creating a deadly bottleneck. Many victims never moved from their positions, overcome by toxic smoke before they could attempt escape. The human toll was devastating. 100 people died and 230 others were injured, many with severe burns requiring extensive surgeries and lifetime medical care.
Was one of the deadliest nightclub fires in our country's history. 100 people died and hundreds more were hurt at the station.
The deceased ranged in age from 18 to 65, united only by their love of music and their presence at the wrong place at the wrong time. The state medical examiner reported that most victims died from smoke inhalation rather than burns, highlighting how quickly the toxic environment rendered escape impossible. Investigations revealed a cascade of failures that contributed to the disaster's magnitude. The flammable foam had been installed to address noise complaints from neighbors, but without consideration of its fire properties. No sprinkler system was present, as the building had been grandfathered under older codes that didn't require one. The pyrotechnics, which shot 15-foot sparks in a room with an 11-foot ceiling, had been used without proper permits or notification to local authorities. Perhaps most critically, several exits were either blocked, unmarked, or unknown to patrons. Security staff had routinely directed customers to use only the main entrance, conditioning attendees to consider it the primary exit even under emergency conditions. This practice created the fatal bottleneck where many victims died. The legal aftermath was extensive. Great White's tour manager received a 4-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to 100 counts of involuntary manslaughter. The club's 2 owners received similar sentences through plea agreements. Civil litigation resulted in a $176 million settlement divided among victims and their families, with contributions from insurance companies, the band, the foam manufacturer, and various other parties deemed partially responsible. The regulatory impact was even more far-reaching. The incident prompted nationwide revisions to fire codes specifically addressing assembly occupancies where crowds gather. These included mandatory sprinkler systems regardless of venue size, stricter enforcement of occupancy limits, requirements for multiple clearly marked exits, flame-resistant materials for all interior finishes, and comprehensive pyrotechnic regulations requiring permits, fire watches, and demonstration of adequate fire suppression capability. This station fire fundamentally changed how musicians approach pyrotechnics, with many bands abandoning indoor pyro entirely. Those who continue to use such effects now typically require extensive advanced documentation of venues' fire safety systems, a practice directly traced to lessons learned from this tragedy. Weather-related festival tragedies. The inherent unpredictability of nature has made weather-related tragedies a persistent threat to outdoor music events throughout history. Despite advanced forecasting technology, severe weather continues to claim lives at festivals worldwide, often striking with devastating speed and catching both organizers and attendees unprepared. Perhaps the most notorious weather disaster at a music festival occurred at the PapaLimpu Festival in Belgium on August 18, 2011. As 60,000 attendees enjoyed performances across multiple stages, an unusually severe thunderstorm developed rapidly over the festival grounds. Within minutes, hail the size of golf balls pelted the site, accompanied by winds exceeding 80 mph. The chateau stage, a large tent structure, collapsed entirely under the combined weight of accumulated hail and wind pressure, crushing spectators beneath its metal framework. 4 people died instantly, and a 5th died later from injuries. Over 140 others were injured, many seriously. Survivor accounts described apocalyptic scenes as massive trees snapped and fell onto crowded areas, sound towers toppled, and debris became lethal projectiles in the intense winds. Festival goer Bavo Verheyen recalled, "It was like a hurricane. People were crying and running for shelter. The hail was so hard, it was cutting people's faces." Similarly destructive outcomes occurred at the Indiana State Fair in 2011, where 7 people died and 58 were injured when high winds caused the main stage to collapse onto a packed audience awaiting a Sugarland performance. Investigation revealed that despite meteorologists' warning of approaching severe weather, no evacuation was ordered until winds were already reaching dangerous speeds, too late for many attendees to reach safety. Lightning strikes represent another deadly weather threat at outdoor festivals. At Germany's Rock am Ring Festival in 2016, 82 people were injured after lightning struck twice during the event. Despite organizers temporarily suspending the festival after the first strike, many attendees remained in the open when the second, more serious strike occurred. Remarkably, no deaths resulted, though many victims reported persistent neurological issues following their injuries. The Burning Man Festival in Nevada's Black Rock Desert faces unique weather challenges in its harsh desert environment. In 2002, a participant died from dehydration and heat exhaustion when temperatures exceeded 110 degrees. The festival now employs a comprehensive heat safety protocol, including distributed water stations and roving medical teams trained specifically to identify heat-related illness. Perhaps most disturbingly, deadly weather incidents often involve a phenomenon experts call optimism bias, both organizers and attendees underestimating risks due to the celebratory nature of festivals. Dr. Keith Still, a crowd safety expert who investigated multiple festival disasters, explained, "People are psychologically resistant to leaving an event they've paid for and anticipated, even when danger becomes apparent. This creates a critical delay in evacuation response times." Modern festival planning now incorporates sophisticated weather monitoring and response protocols. Lollapalooza in Chicago, which evacuated 100,000 attendees ahead of severe storms in both 2012 and 2015, demonstrates the effectiveness of proactive approaches. Their system includes on-site meteorologists, predetermined evacuation trigger points based on storm intensity and proximity, and multiple communication channels to ensure evacuation orders reach all attendees. Technology has improved response capabilities, with many major festivals now employing weather radar integrated directly into event management systems and emergency alerts deliverable through festival apps. However, the distributed nature of large festival grounds and the acoustic challenges of outdoor environments still make rapid, orderly evacuations challenging.